There are moments when people look back at their lives and begin to reinterpret everything they once thought was random. What used to feel like coincidence starts to look like a pattern, not because every detail was planned, but because experience has a way of reshaping meaning over time. In hindsight, even painful relationships, endings that didn't make sense at the time, and long stretches of emotional uncertainty can begin to feel connected in a different way. It's easy, in those periods, to blame yourself for caring deeply, for trusting quickly, or for holding on longer than it made sense to. When things fall apart, the mind often turns inward first, searching for what it did wrong, as if that would explain the loss. But over time, a different understanding can emerge, one that is less about fault and more about alignment. There are people who come into your life who feel meaningful in the moment, yet are not built to last in the shape you hoped for them. Their presence can still matter, even if their staying was never part of your long-term path. In quiet reflection, you may remember nights filled with questions, when everything outside seemed to move forward for others while you stayed behind, processing what didn't work out. You may recall the feeling of wondering if something in you was the reason for repeated disappointment, but with distance, it becomes clearer that not every ending is a measure of worth. Some connections end not because you were too much, but because they could not hold the fullness of who you are becoming. And while that realization doesn't erase the pain, it slowly shifts the meaning of it, turning confusion into something more like understanding. The waiting is not meaningless. The loneliness is not punishment. The silence is not rejection. It is preparation. Because when I choose a soulmate, I do not choose lightly. For 2026, my child, I have chosen someone for you. Not randomly, not impulsively, not because time was running out. I chose them because their soul speaks the same language as yours, even if your minds have not yet understood it. You think you are late. You think time has passed you by. You think opportunities slipped through your fingers. But I operate outside of clocks and calendars. What I promise arrives exactly when it must. There were moments when you almost crossed paths with this person, almost met, almost spoke, almost noticed, but almost was not enough yet, because both of you were still becoming, still healing, still shedding versions of yourselves that could not love correctly. You were learning boundaries. They were learning courage. You were learning self-worth. They were learning honesty. If I had allowed you to meet too soon, you would have loved each other from wounds, not from wholeness, and wounded love breaks easily. So I kept you apart, not as strangers, but as souls moving closer with every lesson. You may not realize it, but you already feel their presence. Sometimes it shows up as restlessness, sometimes as a sudden memory that doesn't belong to your past, sometimes as a strange peace mixed with fear, as if something big is approaching and you don't know whether to run or stay still. That is not anxiety. That is alignment. I have watched you grow quieter, deeper, more selective. I have watched you stop chasing and start listening. I have watched you learn how to sit with yourself without running to distractions. These changes were not random. They were required, because the person I have chosen for you is not here to complete you. They are here to walk with you, and for that, you had to learn how to stand on your own first. You asked me once, God, why do I feel like I've known someone I haven't met yet? My child, souls recognize before eyes do. The connection you are moving toward is not loud. It does not arrive with chaos. It does not begin with confusion or mixed signals. It arrives with calm recognition, with a feeling of home you cannot explain, with a sense of safety that does not demand proof. This is why I kept removing people who brought intensity without peace, passion without stability, words without actions, because the soulmate I have chosen does not drain you, they strengthen you. They will not compete with your past. They will understand it. They will not fear your depth. They will respect it. They will not rush your heart. They will protect it. And yes, the name will shock you, not because it is famous, not because it is dramatic, but because, when you finally hear it spoken with truth, something inside you will whisper, "It was always you." You might resist it at first. You might question me. You might say, "God, not this person." And I will gently remind you that I see beyond your logic. In those times, it becomes easy to assume that what we once experienced will simply repeat itself, even when circumstances have already begun to shift. But not every situation follows the same pattern, and not every pause or distance carries the same meaning as before. Sometimes, space exists not as absence, but as a period where clarity can form without pressure or rush. When communication or connection feels uncertain, the healthiest response is often not to fill in the gaps with fear or expectation, but to remain grounded in what is real and observable, while allowing time to reveal what is not yet clear. Emotional protection is natural, especially when someone has been hurt or let down before, yet closing off completely can also prevent the possibility of new understanding. The challenge lies in staying open without becoming vulnerable to unrealistic assumptions, and in being patient without abandoning self-respect or personal boundaries. Real connection, when it develops, does not require confusion or emotional pressure to prove its value. It becomes evident through consistency, respect, and mutual effort over time. Instead of relying on signs or patterns to determine meaning, it becomes more stable to focus on direct communication and actions that demonstrate intent. When people are aligned in a healthy way, clarity tends to grow rather than diminish, and trust is built gradually through experience rather than anticipation. In that sense, waiting does not have to mean passivity. It can be a period of personal strengthening, where attention is directed inward toward growth, emotional balance, and self-awareness. What truly matters is not the uncertainty itself, but how one chooses to move through it, either by being driven by fear of the past or by a steady commitment to present reality. This is only the beginning. What I have chosen will not rush into your life loudly. It will arrive quietly, firmly, and with purpose. And when it does, you will understand why every closed door before this one had to remain shut. Rest now, my child. Trust the process you cannot yet see, because the selection has already been made, and your heart is closer to its answer than you think. I know you are wondering why it took so long. I know a part of you still asks me quietly, "God, if this was meant for me, why did it hurt so much before?" Listen to me now, with the same heart that learned how to survive when love disappointed you. The distance was never denial. The delay was never cruelty. It was wisdom. There were seasons when you were ready to give your heart to anyone who stayed. You called it loyalty, but deep inside, it was fear of being alone. I could not allow your soulmate to meet a version of you that was still begging to be chosen, because the love I am preparing for you does not begin with desperation. It begins with dignity. And while you were learning this, the other soul was also being shaped. Yes, my child, they were struggling too. There were nights when they questioned their own worth, days when they felt unseen, moments when they wanted to give up on love completely. They carried their own scars, their own disappointments, their own regrets. I could not let two wounded hearts collide and call it destiny. That would have been chaos, not covenant. So I worked on both of you, separately. I taught you how to let go. I taught them how to speak truth. I taught you how to wait without losing faith. I taught them how to stand firm without running away. You thought you were being ignored, but you were being protected from a love that would not have survived your growth. Some connections ended because they were only meant to teach you what love is not. Some people left because they could only meet you at the level you had already outgrown. I removed them not because you failed, but because you evolved. There were moments when you felt ready and nothing happened. You prayed harder, you waited longer, you questioned my timing. But timing is not about readiness alone, it is about alignment. Both souls must be ready at the same time, in the same truth, with the same intention. And until that moment arrived, I kept you apart. You may not realize it, but there were invisible threads pulling you closer with every lesson you learned. Each time you chose peace over chaos. Each time you walked away instead of chasing. Each time you healed instead of hardened. What is more meaningful than these internal echoes is how a person responds to them. Growth is not measured by how often the past returns to awareness, but by how differently it is handled when it does. Instead of interpreting these moments as signs of destiny or instruction, they can be seen as reminders of what once mattered and what has since changed. This perspective allows a person to remain grounded in the present, rather than being pulled into the expectation that every thought or coincidence carries a predetermined meaning. Most importantly, it reinforces the idea that emotional clarity comes from reflection and lived experience, not from interpreting patterns as external messages. In relationships that carry depth, timing often plays a significant role, but not in a mystical sense. It is simply that two people may not always be in the same emotional place at the same time. One person may be ready for openness, while the other is still learning how to trust again. When alignment eventually happens, it is usually because both individuals have grown into a more stable understanding of themselves and what they need from connection. This kind of alignment is not about fate arranging outcomes, but about people evolving independently until a healthier form of relating becomes possible. The most sustainable connections are the ones where neither person feels pressured to become something they are not in order to be accepted. Instead, there is room for honesty, boundaries, and mutual respect to coexist. When someone is ready for that kind of connection, they are not focused on interpreting every moment as a sign, but on building something real through communication and consistency. In that sense, the true shift is not about waiting for circumstances to change, but about becoming someone who can participate in a relationship without losing themselves in it. You would have hidden parts of yourselves. You would have loved carefully, fearfully. Now, you are learning how to love honestly. The connection you are moving toward does not need masks. They will meet the real you, the one who knows their value, who speaks their needs, who does not shrink to be accepted, and you will meet the real them, the one who is no longer running from depth, commitment, or truth. This is why I say the waiting was necessary. You thought you were losing time, but you were gaining clarity. You thought you were missing out, but you were being set apart. I was removing distractions so you could recognize destiny when it finally arrived. And when it does, you will understand something that once confused you. You will see why every, almost, had to remain unfinished, why every closed door was mercy, why every delay was kindness disguised as silence. The name I will reveal will not shock you because it is unfamiliar. It will shock you because it has been quietly present in your life in ways you did not understand, a person you underestimated, a connection you never explored, a presence you felt but never questioned deeply enough. And when realization begins to settle in your heart, you may feel fear. That fear is not a warning. It is the mind catching up to what the soul already knows. Do not run from that feeling. Sit with it. Let it speak. Let it guide you. Because what is unfolding is not rushed, not forced, not temporary. It is chosen. I did not delay this love to punish you. I delayed it to preserve it. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are right on time. What I have prepared will meet you where you are, not where you were. And when the moment arrives, you will not have to chase, convince, or question. You will simply recognize. Rest in this truth, my child. The separation had a purpose. The silence had meaning. And the next sign you receive will not confuse you. It will confirm what your heart has been quietly preparing for all along. You are closer now than you realize. Closer than the days you count. Closer than the doubts you still carry quietly in your chest. I want you to listen carefully, because what I am about to tell you is not meant for your ears alone. It is meant for your spirit. Before I ever speak the name out loud, I always allow recognition to come first, because when something is truly chosen, it does not need introduction. It feels remembered. The signs you are about to experience are not loud. They will not shake the world around you. They will gently shift something inside you. And if you pay attention, you will know this is not ordinary. You may notice a person whose presence feels different from others, not intense, not overwhelming, just steady. When they enter a space, your breathing changes, your guard lowers without effort, your mind grows quiet. This is not excitement driven by fear. This is peace, wrapped in curiosity. That is one sign. Another sign will come through familiarity without history. You will feel like you have known them before, even if your conversations have been few. Their voice will not demand attention, but when they speak, something in you listens, not because of what they say, but because of how it feels when they say it. You will not need to impress them. You will not feel the urge to perform. You will not rehearse your words in your head. You will be yourself without permission. Pay attention to how your body responds. Destiny often speaks through the body before the mind understands. You may feel warmth in your chest, a soft pressure in your heart, a sudden stillness. These are not random sensations. They are recognition. You have felt attraction before. You have felt excitement before. But this will feel different. This will feel safe. And safety will confuse you at first, because you are still learning that peace does not mean boredom. You may question it. You may think, why does this feel so simple? My child, real alignment does not shout. It whispers. I will also send signs through repetition. One of the most reliable indicators of healthy connection is a sense of ease that does not demand performance or defense. You may find that conversations flow without excessive analysis afterward, and that your thoughts do not spiral into unnecessary reinterpretation of every word. Silence, too, becomes meaningful in a different way. Instead of feeling like distance or uncertainty, it can feel grounded, like two people existing without pressure to fill every gap with explanation. This kind of silence is not emptiness but shared presence, where words are not required to validate connection. Over time, you may also notice that your emotional state remains more regulated in the presence of someone compatible with your growth, not because they are responsible for your stability, but because you are not being triggered into protective patterns as frequently. Another subtle sign is how naturally you remain yourself without exaggeration or withdrawal. You do not feel the need to test the connection or withdraw to prove safety. Instead, there is a quiet consistency in how you show up. Perhaps the most telling experience is not dramatic recognition or overwhelming certainty, but a simple feeling of being understood without explanation, not judged, not evaluated, but accepted in a way that allows you to relax into authenticity without performing for approval. This kind of experience is less about external signs and more about internal regulation and emotional safety. When something is right for you in a relational sense, it tends to support your sense of self rather than distort it. You do not lose clarity of who you are in order to maintain connection. Instead, you become more clearly yourself, not analyzed, not questioned, seen. They will notice things about you that others missed, not your achievements, but your patterns, your pauses, your emotions behind the words, and they will not use this knowledge to control you, but to understand you. This is how love is meant to feel. I will not send confusion as a sign. I will not send anxiety as confirmation. I will not send chaos as destiny. What I send will bring clarity, even if it takes time to fully accept it. You may also notice a strange sense of timing around this person. They appear when you are not looking. They speak when you are silent. They show up when you have stopped asking. This is alignment, not coincidence. The signs will come gently, but consistently. Not once, not twice, Repeat it enough that your heart begins to trust what your mind still questions, and then the name will start appearing, not in a dramatic way, casually, in conversations that have nothing to do with love, in places you least expect. It will catch your attention, not because it is loud, but because it feels familiar, and every time you hear it, something in you will pause. Do not rush to conclusions. Do not force meaning. Let the signs unfold naturally. What is chosen does not need to be chased. You are not being tested. You are being prepared. The recognition will come before the revelation. The feeling will come before the confirmation. The knowing will come before the name. Trust this process, my child, because when I finally speak the name clearly, it will not feel new. It will feel like something you have always known, but were only now ready to accept. And when that moment arrives, your heart will not race, it will rest. Now your heart is beginning to understand what your mind has been trying to resist. You feel it, don't you? That quiet shift, that moment when denial no longer feels honest. This is the space where truth begins to rise, not loudly, not forcefully, but with certainty. Before a name is ever spoken on the lips, it is written in the soul. It is also common for the mind to re-evaluate past interactions or recurring details when you are in a reflective state. A name, a place, or even a passing reference can take on more weight than it originally held, not because its nature has changed, but because your internal context has. When you are emotionally engaged in thinking about connection, meaning, or direction in your life, neutral information can become emotionally colored. This does not mean your instincts are wrong. It simply means they are active, searching for coherence between memory and present experience. In that search, the mind can sometimes over-interpret familiarity as significance, especially when uncertainty is present. What feels like a, quote, sign is often the brain doing what it naturally does, linking dots, even when those dots were never meant to form a single picture. At the same time, there is something very human in trying to understand why certain thoughts persist, or why certain names or ideas linger longer than expected. It reflects a deeper need for clarity and emotional resolution. But clarity rarely comes from assigning certainty too quickly to what is still forming. It tends to come later, after experience has had time to settle, and after emotions have had space to quiet down enough for perspective to emerge. When that happens, what once felt loaded with meaning often becomes simpler and more grounded in reality. You begin to see not a hidden design, but a combination of timing, repetition, and attention working together. In that sense, what feels, quote, closer is often not about proximity in destiny or hidden alignment, but about proximity in awareness. The more you think about something, the more present it becomes in your internal world, until it starts to feel like it has always been there in a special or unusual way. Recognizing this helps separate emotional intensity from actual external significance. It allows you to stay anchored in what is observable rather than what is assumed, and to understand that meaning is something the mind constructs continuously, not something that is automatically embedded into every repeated detail of life. You did not expect destiny to feel this near. You assumed love would arrive from far away, from a dramatic story, from a perfect moment. But love chosen by me often arrives quietly, already woven into your life in ways you did not recognize as significant. This is where many people turn away. They mistake simplicity for insignificance. They mistake calm for lack of passion. They mistake stability for boredom. But my child, chaos is not passion, and intensity is not intimacy. The name I have written is steady. It carries grounding energy. It does not demand your attention. It earns your trust. When you think of this person, you do not feel overwhelmed. You feel thoughtful, reflective, calm. And that calm scares you, because chaos trained you to believe love must hurt to be real. But I am here to unteach you that lie. This name will not trigger your insecurities. It will expose them so they can finally be healed. This person will not mirror your wounds. They will meet you in your growth. You may begin to replay past moments in your mind, conversations that felt ordinary at the time, interactions that lingered without reason, looks exchanged without explanation, and suddenly you will see them differently, not with fantasy, with clarity. That clarity may bring tears, not of sadness, but of release. Release from the idea that love must be complicated. Release from the belief that you must suffer to be chosen. You will realize that while you were searching for love, love was learning how to reach you gently. I know you are afraid to trust this knowing. You fear disappointment. You fear misinterpreting the signs. But hear me clearly. I do not confuse my children. What I reveal brings peace, even if it requires adjustment. The name you are resisting is not a mistake. It is an invitation to love differently, to love honestly, to love without fear of loss controlling your choices. You may want certainty before surrender, but surrender is what creates certainty. Do not rush to speak. Do not rush to act. Allow the truth to settle naturally. Let your heart catch up to what your soul has already accepted, because the moment you stop fighting this recognition, you will feel it, the deep exhale of alignment, and then you will understand why I waited, why I protected you, why I delayed you, why I prepared you. The name was written long before you noticed it, long before you were ready to accept it, and now, as you sit with this truth, know this: I am not asking you to force anything. I am only asking you to trust what is already unfolding. The final confirmation will not come as a shock to your spirit. It will feel like coming home. And when you are ready, I will speak clearly, not to surprise you, but to reassure you that what your heart has begun to recognize is real. Now listen to me carefully, my child, because this is where everything becomes gentle, clear, and complete. You have felt the pull. You have resisted it. You have sat with the truth long enough for it to stop frightening you. That is how I know you are ready. The person I have chosen for you for 2026 is not coming to disrupt your life. They are coming to fit into it, not to compete with your past, not to erase it, but to honor the journey that shaped you into who you are now. This is not a love that arrives to rescue you. It arrives to recognize you. By now, your heart already knows who this is. I do not need to shout the name. I do not need to dramatize it. The confirmation you seek has been forming quietly inside you, piece by piece, until doubt lost its strength. The thoughts that once arrived sharply, carrying urgency and fear, start to soften at the edges. You don't react the same way you used to. Situations that once pulled you into spirals of overthinking now feel more manageable, not because life has become easier, but because something within you has changed in how it responds. Anxiety, when it appears, doesn't dominate the entire space anymore. Instead, there is a new layer present alongside it, a steadier awareness that notices what is happening without immediately being consumed by it. This doesn't come from forcing positivity or convincing yourself that everything is fine. It comes from repeated experiences of surviving what you once thought would break you, and realizing afterward that you are still here, still intact, still capable of continuing. Over time, that realization builds a kind of internal trust, not blind confidence, but a grounded understanding that your emotions are signals, not sentences. You begin to observe them instead of obeying them. Fear doesn't disappear, but it loses its authority. It stops being the only voice in the room. In its place, curiosity slowly grows. You start asking different questions. Not, what if everything goes wrong? But, what is actually happening right now? That shift changes how you relate to uncertainty. Instead of tightening around it, you loosen. Instead of bracing for impact, you stay present long enough to understand what is real and what is memory replaying old patterns. There may be moments when your past tries to speak louder than your present, when old habits resurface, when you want to retreat instead of trust, when you want to test instead of receive. When that happens, pause, And remember this moment. Remember that I chose with wisdom, not impulse. Do not allow outside voices to plant doubt, not friends who project their fears, not memories that no longer belong to you, not expectations shaped by what hurt you before. What I have prepared does not need approval. It needs openness. You are allowed to be happy without guilt. You are allowed to feel safe without suspicion. You are allowed to receive love without wondering when it will end. The season of survival is closing. The season of partnership is beginning. And I want you to know this clearly. You were never hard to love. You were simply waiting for someone who could love you right. I bless this connection before it fully unfolds. I bless the conversations you have not yet had. I bless the moments of laughter, the quiet evenings, the shared growth, the understanding that words cannot always explain. I bless your heart with patience. I bless your mind with peace. I bless your future with stability and joy. What comes next will not feel like chasing destiny. It will feel like stepping into it. Trust what has been revealed. Trust what you feel when you are honest with yourself. Trust that I would not guide you this far only to confuse you now. You are not late. You are not mistaken. You are not alone. I have chosen carefully. I have prepared intentionally. And I am walking with you into what comes next. Rest in this knowing, my child. What was chosen for you is already choosing you back. I see your heart still listening. I see that even after clarity, something inside you is asking for deeper reassurance, not because you doubt me, but because what is coming matters to you more than anything before. So listen again, slowly, gently. Let these words settle where fear used to live. There is a reason I am speaking to you this way. I do not speak this deeply unless the soul listening is ready to receive truth without running from it. You are not here by accident. You are not hearing this because you are curious. You are hearing this because your season has shifted, and your spirit already stepped into it before your mind could catch up. You have survived a version of life where you were always the one who tried harder. You loved deeply, even when it was not safe. You stayed longer than you should have. You forgave without being understood. You hoped even when evidence told you to stop. That was not weakness. That was purity. But purity without protection becomes exhaustion. That is why I intervened. I watched every tear you hid. I heard every prayer you whispered when you felt foolish for still believing. I felt the heaviness in your chest when you wondered if love was something meant only for others. And still, you kept your heart open. That alone tells me everything I need to know about you. The love I am bringing into your life is not here to test your endurance. It is here to reward your faith. Not faith in people, but faith in me. Faith that even when things did not make sense, something meaningful was being prepared. You may not understand this yet, but the person chosen for you also went through moments where they almost gave up. They questioned timing. They questioned themselves. They wondered why connection felt delayed, why fulfillment seemed close but never complete. They felt an emptiness they could not name. That emptiness was not lack. It was space being preserved for you. As you move forward from those experiences, your understanding of connection begins to shift from intensity towards stability. You become more aware of the difference between what captures attention and what actually supports emotional well-being over time. Relationships that are grounded tend to feel less chaotic, less dependent on constant reassurance or emotional extremes, and more rooted in mutual understanding and consistency. This kind of steadiness can feel unfamiliar at first, especially if you are used to associating emotional depth with unpredictability or uncertainty. But with time, you begin to recognize that healthy connection does not require constant proof, competition, or emotional testing to remain valid. Instead, it allows space for individuality while still maintaining respect and care. You also begin to see how earlier experiences contributed to your ability to notice these differences more clearly. What once felt like confusion now functions as reference points, helping you identify what aligns with your emotional needs and what gradually erodes them. Patience, in this sense, becomes less about waiting endlessly and more about allowing clarity to emerge without forcing outcomes prematurely. You learn that not everything meaningful arrives in the form you initially expected, and not everything unfamiliar is something to fear or reject immediately. Instead, unfamiliarity can simply be the mind adjusting to a healthier pattern than it is used to. In that adjustment, there is space for calmer choices, more grounded expectations, and a deeper sense of emotional self-trust. And as that trust strengthens, you become less focused on decoding every feeling as a sign, and more focused on whether what you experience consistently supports your peace. Not because it is wrong, but because it does not mirror your past. You were conditioned to associate love with uncertainty, with waiting for replies, with questioning intentions, with emotional highs and lows. This will feel different. It will feel calm. It will feel steady. It will feel mutual. And because of that, you may wonder if something is missing. Nothing is missing. Something toxic is missing. You are stepping into a kind of love that does not require suffering to be meaningful, a love where you can rest without fear that rest will cost you connection. This is not a coincidence. It is evolution. I also want to speak to the fear you haven't said out loud, the fear of losing this before it fully begins, the fear that happiness might be temporary, the fear that trusting again could lead to disappointment. Hear me clearly. What is built with me at the center is not fragile. Yes, challenges will come. Growth always brings adjustment. But this connection will not break at the first sign of difficulty. It will not run when things require effort. It will not disappear when vulnerability deepens. You are not being given perfection. You are being given partnership. There is a difference. This person will not always have the right words, but they will have the right intentions. They will not always understand immediately, but they will try. They will not love you flawlessly, but they will love you sincerely. And sincerity is what lasts. I know you once believed love had to arrive dramatically to be real, but the most sacred things often arrive quietly, like dawn, like healing, like peace. The future I am opening for you is not loud, it is stable. You will build routines together, small habits, shared silences, inside jokes, safe conversations. You will grow into each other's lives instead of forcing yourselves into them. And one day, without realizing when it happened, you will look back and understand, this is what I was waiting for. Not the excitement that fades, not the passion that burns out, but the presence that stays. I want you to release one more thing before you move forward: comparison. Do not measure this love against what others have. Do not rush milestones because you think time is running out. Do not let the world tell you how your story should unfold. This story is sacred because it is yours. You are not late. You are not behind. You are exactly where you need to be. Every delay refined you. Every ending redirected you. Every disappointment protected you. And now, something meaningful is beginning, not suddenly, not magically, but truthfully. When doubts try to return, remember how far you've come. Remember the version of you who once begged for clarity. That clarity is here now. It may not shout, but it is steady. Trust the calm. Trust the consistency. Trust the way your heart no longer feels heavy when you imagine the future. That lightness is not imagination, it is alignment. I am not asking you to force belief. I am asking you to notice what is already changing within you, the way hope feels safer, the way waiting feels purposeful, the way loneliness no longer defines you. You are stepping into a chapter where love does not feel like survival, and when the world tries to confuse you again, because it will, return to this truth. I chose carefully, not just for your happiness, but for your peace. You have carried enough. You have learned enough. You have waited enough. Now, You are allowed to receive. Walk forward gently. Stay present. Stay open. Let what is meant for you arrive without resistance. I am still guiding you. I am still protecting you. And I am still ahead of you, preparing what comes next. Rest your heart, my child. What unfolds from here will not break you. It will build you. Come closer, my child, not with your feet, but with your trust. You have reached a place where your soul is no longer asking if something is coming, but how to live while it unfolds. That is a sacred shift. Most people never reach it. They chase certainty until they exhaust themselves. You, however, are learning how to walk with faith, even when the road is still revealing itself. This is why I am speaking again, because what I am preparing you for is not just love, it is a new way of being. You have spent much of your life bracing yourself. As emotional awareness deepens, people often begin to revisit earlier experiences, not to reopen old wounds, but to make sense of them in a more complete and settled way. Thoughts may return to past conversations, decisions, or endings, not as cycles of regret, but as attempts to fully understand what once felt unresolved. This process is less about changing what happened and more about integrating it into a clearer personal narrative, where meaning replaces confusion. In this stage, reflection becomes more constructive, allowing individuals to see how certain patterns developed and how their responses were shaped by what they knew at the time. With this understanding, the emotional weight of the past often begins to shift. What once felt like a source of anxiety can become a reference point for growth, showing how resilience and awareness were gradually built over time. This creates space for a different kind of emotional availability, one that is less defensive and more grounded in present reality. Instead of anticipating harm or withdrawal, there is a growing ability to remain engaged without constant self-protection. This does not mean vulnerability disappears. Rather, it becomes more intentional and less reactive. In relationships, this shift supports clearer communication, where expectations are expressed rather than inferred, and where consistency becomes more important than uncertainty or interpretation. Emotional safety in this sense is not created through perfection, but through clarity, respect, and steady behavior over time. As a result, the focus moves away from trying to control outcomes or predict intentions, and toward observing what is actually present in actions and interactions. This allows for more stable connection experiences, where individuals are better able to recognize what aligns with their well-being and what does not, without being driven primarily by fear of repetition from the past. The person chosen for you will not trigger the version of you that had to survive. They will meet the version of you that is ready to live, and that version is quieter, wiser, and far more powerful than you realize. You may notice yourself changing even now. Your reactions are slower, your emotions are clearer. You are less willing to explain yourself to people who do not listen. You are more protective of your energy, not in anger, but in respect. These are not walls, these are standards, and the one I am bringing can meet them. You once feared that having standards would leave you alone, but I tell you now, standards are what guide the right people toward you. Anyone who is meant to walk beside you will not feel threatened by your boundaries. They will feel relieved by them, because healthy souls recognize safety when they see it. This connection will not feel like chasing alignment. It will feel like discovering that alignment was already there, waiting patiently. You will not need to prove yourself worthy. You will not need to rush vulnerability to secure attachment. You will be met where you are. There will be moments when you are tempted to rush ahead mentally, to imagine outcomes, to predict endings, to fast forward through uncertainty. This is understandable. You have waited a long time, but do not rush the unfolding. Some things are not meant to be conquered quickly. They are meant to be grown into. The love that lasts is not built in a moment of intensity. It is built in a series of small, consistent choices. showing up, listening, staying, choosing again and again, even when the excitement settles into familiarity. This is not less powerful, this is more real. You will learn that intimacy does not always look like passion. Sometimes it looks like comfort, like shared silence, like safety in disagreement, like knowing you can be honest without being abandoned. You will learn that love does not disappear when the mood changes, it deepens. And yes, there will be days when fear whispers old lies. It may say, "Don't trust this," or, "You've felt hope before." When that happens, pause. Do not argue with the fear, simply observe it. Fear speaks from memory, faith speaks from alignment. Ask yourself how this connection makes you feel in your body, not in your imagination. Notice whether your chest tightens or relaxes, whether your thoughts spiral or settle. Your body remembers what safety feels like, even if your mind is still learning. I designed you that way on purpose. You are not being asked to abandon logic. You are being asked to balance it with wisdom. Wisdom understands that not everything valuable announces itself with fireworks. Some of the most important things enter quietly and transform you slowly. You will also learn something new about yourself through this love. You will see how capable you are of receiving without guilt, how natural it feels to be supported without feeling weak, how freeing it is to be understood without having to explain yourself repeatedly. You are not losing independence by allowing partnership. You are expanding into a fuller version of yourself. This connection will not shrink your world, it will steady it. There is a reason I waited until now to bring this into your life. You needed to know who you are without anyone else defining you. You needed to see your own resilience. You needed to trust your intuition. Now you do. And that is why I am not worried about you losing yourself. You won't. You've already found who you are. I also want you to release the idea that this love must follow a specific timeline to be valid. Do not let age, comparison, or expectation pressure you into rushing sacred things. What unfolds between two aligned souls does not follow societal clocks. It follows truth. Some steps will be slow. Some will feel natural. Some will surprise you. Let each one happen without judgment. You do not need to control the process to keep it safe. I am here. I am guiding conversations you haven't had yet. I am softening hearts you haven't fully reached yet. More often, those experiences serve to help a person understand themselves better, clarify boundaries, and develop emotional awareness that carries forward into future relationships in a practical way. When someone becomes more grounded in themselves, their expectations of connection also shift. Instead of seeking intensity or certainty, they tend to value consistency, communication, and emotional steadiness. These are not abstract ideals, they are lived experiences that feel different in the body and mind when they are present. A healthy connection does not rely on interpreting ambiguity or searching for hidden meaning in every interaction. It is built through clarity, mutual respect, and the ability to speak openly without fear of misinterpretation or emotional instability. It is also natural to want reassurance when stepping into something new emotionally. However, reassurance that is rooted in anxiety or uncertainty can sometimes create more dependence on interpretation than on reality itself. A more stable form of reassurance comes from observing behavior over time, noticing patterns of consistency, and allowing actions, not assumptions, to guide understanding. This keeps expectations anchored in what is real rather than what is imagined or hoped for in moments of emotional vulnerability. Ultimately, the healthiest direction forward is one where hope is not tied to certainty and openness is not dependent on guarantees. It is a space where you allow experiences to unfold while staying aware of your own boundaries and emotional needs. In that space, connection is not something you chase or decode, but something you participate in with clarity and presence. And whether something grows or not, your sense of self remains intact, not defined by outcome but shaped by awareness, experience, and steady self-respect.